I already know about your background. I've watched excerpts from your talks, and now I've read this brand new book. Um, what I'm curious about, though, is for people that have not delved into your story yet, what is your pitch? Why should people in the corporate world take advice from a rock drummer?
Good question. Because as opposed to corporate, the music business, there's no template. And I talk about this in my presentation where if you have a normal, quote unquote, a normal business, you can set out with on the planning stages and have the marketing. Well, first of all, you provide your product or service, a high quality product or service that's going to benefit the customer. You price the product or service at a reasonable price. You have the marketing team to get the word out about your product or service. You have your in-house team to create the product or service. You have the customer service team to deal with the potential customers. Online marketing. You have a plan in place, a schematic, if you will, a grid in which to work. And if all of those things are in place, if all the ducks are in a row, eventually the customer is going to be happy with the product, the service, and tell other customers, and they will come back and you have new customers as a result of your existing customers because it's word of mouth.
All right.
And so eventually over the course of time and the amount of time depends on the situation, but eventually your business will be successful or incrementally be better than the year before if
Mm-hmm.
you have all those ducks in a row. In the music business, I get off a headline tour with Cyndi Lauper, touring arenas all around the world, and I get home and I wake up the next day and my calendar's empty. So what is it about, in my case, what is it about in my situation where I've made a living for over, and the fact is only 5% of musicians make a living for longer than 1 year.
Mm.
So in my case, I've made a living for over 50 years. I played with platinum artists, three of which are in the Hall of Fame. I've done world tours, played on top 10 records, and between TV and live, I've performed for over 1 billion people. So how does somebody like me that has no family history of anybody being in the music business, I'm not a virtuoso on the drum set. So how does somebody like me beat some tremendous odds? And I base what corporate has to know is that I base my presentation, I base my life on an acronym called BEATS.
Mm-hmm.
And not only have I been playing beats for over 55 years or so, but I've been living these principles. And the principles that I speak about to corporate is, and it applies to everybody, not just corporate. It applies to all human beings. It's a foundation of life, and the acronym stands for the BEATS acronym stands for belief, enthusiasm, attitude, tenacity, and service.
Mm-hmm.
And when you live, it's not just when you go to work you pay attention to this. You live, you incorporate these attributes into the fabric of your everyday life. And it's a combination of your thinking, of how you perceive events that happen to everybody, how
Mm-hmm.
you perceive events that of are upcoming in your personal and or business life, in combination with how you treat people along the way. And it has to do with your team. If you're a leader, if you're a CEO, it has to do with your team. It has to do, if you're a parent, it has to do with your family, your personal and business life. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, I remind corporate what's really, really important. Sometimes people in a corporate world, and I found this, focus too much on the numbers, on the result of somebody's working at their company. What have you produced for me? What have you done for me and my company? And
Mm-hmm.
and they're judged based on just those numbers,
Right.
spreadsheets, quarterly quotas, pie graphs. How much is your vacation going to be? How much is going to be my bonus? This is all thoughts about numbers. And I call this analogy paying attention to just the icing and not the cake. The
Yeah.
cake in this case is the people behind the numbers. To focus on the person in addition to the numbers that they produce. So basically, CEOs need to be reminded about, because their head sometimes is totally involved with the numbers and the profitability and the shareholders. Are the shareholders going to be happy?
All
But what
right.
about the people that provide the numbers for your company, that provide the product or service that your shareholders love? You know what I mean? So it's about that. It's about, don't lose sight of the human being that produces your numbers.
Yeah. And it is something that's happened again and again, time and time again. And the worst policy along these lines, in my opinion, is often referred to as rank and yank, where a company says, "Okay, we're going to rank everyone in every department in every company, and at the end of every year, the bottom 10% are going to get knocked out." Recently, Mark Zuckerberg announced that basically he was going to be doing this with Meta, which is over Facebook and Instagram. And a friend on LinkedIn said, well, what do you think about this? And basically, I said, well, anytime you start stealing from Enron's playbook, it's usually going to end badly. So it's one of the most disgusting things I think a corporation can do. But that begs the question, because you're right, they do focus on numbers and data and charts. But then the question is, how can they measure or evaluate their people?
Well, you take the 10% that you're just about to have fired, because it's not only the what that you're judged upon, and Zuckerberg is judging his whole workforce on the numbers they produce. The bottom 10%. Um, what about what it's not only that's the what. The how is how they produce those numbers. So if you're in there above 90% and your job is safe, well, you could have produced those numbers by lying, by downplaying a rival, let's say telling a mistruth about a competitor. Cyndi Lauper, for example, used to, and bands should, in general, instead of just giving a blanket bonus at the end of a tour, you bonus the people according to not only their performance, but it's how they dealt with fans, and
Mm-hmm.
how they aligned with the culture of your band, of your gig. It's not only the numbers. It's that 10%. Maybe that is someone in that bottom 10%. Maybe they were lacking in their job performance because maybe their wife was diagnosed or their husband was diagnosed with a tremendous disease that their mind. So you don't know the reason why that 10% produce such low numbers unless you ask them, unless you confer with them. Ask questions of the human being that supplies the numbers. Okay, Zuckerberg, well, I got 12 million employees. How am I going to do that and get it's all about, well, you know what? You have managers that deal with the teams. And Zuckerberg is at the top of the pyramid, but he has an executive team that
Right.
manages certain segments of his business.
Mm-hmm.
So you train the team leaders it's the trickle down, all the way down to your suppliers, all the way down to the people that change the waste baskets in your office or your factory.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is really important in a company's ecosystem. From not only the shareholders, you want to make the shareholders happy, but you also want to make your employees happy. You want to make the common customer happy. You want to make the people that cleans your office, you want to make them happy too, because they all have a job to do that is important for the success of your company.
Right.
And to
And
only focus on the numbers is not fair, because the person in the top 10% could be ripping the company off behind your back. You don't know that.
Yeah, well, that was the thing with Enron. These guys were just, if you make your numbers, we don't care how you do it, and thus they went on a string of illegal endeavors that, brought down, this mammoth corporation.
Well, that's what happens, Chris. Karma catches up to you, man. You
Yeah.
only get away with something for a certain amount of time, and then you're blindsided. Sometime down the future, and bye bye, Enron, bye bye, and
Mhm.
bye bye.
Yeah.
So
And then, one thing that I think really differentiates your book from a lot that would be, say, lumped into the same category is right off the bat, you talk about this is not one of those books that has impossible promises. That's will tell you. I think is the terminology you used. I can make you into Batman in 5 minutes. That because there are so many of those out there where they just promise the moon, the stars, and everything else, and it's so amazingly, I don't know, kind of despicable, really. But so I love the number one, you attacked that head on. But what I'm wondering is, in terms of quote beating the odds, how does someone, an average person, beat the odds and yet still have the inspiration to go for better things, and yet also keep the realistic expectations?
well, the whole thing about beating the odds is that it's the average person, as you put it. It's a mindset, and in the first letter in the acronym is belief. And to me, the foundation of why I was able to beat the odds, if you ask me for one reason and only one reason why I was able to beat the odds is because I have a staunch belief that there's a power greater than me at work in my life. That is possible, that anything and everything is possible with this higher power. And it's not about organized religion. It's not about putting the name on a certain theory or a certain, philosophy or whatever. It's the recognition of a power greater than ourselves at work. And when you align yourself with that higher power, the creator of the universe, that's what this power is, anything is possible. Anything and everything is possible. So it's wrapping your mind around being a partner with this higher power. I look at the higher power, and you can call it God, you can call it Goddess, you can call it the universe, you can call it a higher self, you can call it whatever you want to call it. There's no gender attached to it.
Mm.
But when you believe and you align and you subscribe your life to this higher power, the possibilities are endless. So it's that knowing that you have a co-pilot, you have a GPS on your shoulder that is a know all be all of the creator of the universe. It's like having a co-pilot, piloting a plane, but the person that invented the plane is sitting next to you, and
Hmm.
so that you have that advice coming, that inspiration, so it's that belief in combination of the way you as a human being, because that God energy is inside of all of us, because we have a soul, and that's what makes people different than a tulip, for example. We have a soul inside of us, but we have to tap into that power, and that God energy, because we're human beings, gave us a choice, gave us free will to choose what we want to choose, when we want to choose it, and how to think. We have a choice of how we think and how we think about our perception about things that happen in the world, how we perceive them, negatively or positively. So there's always going to be a fork in the road where you think about something and what you pay attention to, negative or positive, and we have a choice. In combination of the way we think and our alignment with the higher power in our lives, and the way we think and our perception of things that happen to us or happen to in the world, or future things that are on our agenda, what our outlook is regarding future events. But it also a combination of that is how we treat other people. Because other people, no matter who they are, have that little God energy, that little flame inside, because we're all human beings. So
Hmm.
when we do things and we say things to kind of lift up other people, when we say things to put a smile on other people's face, when we give advice to other people that ends up affecting their life in a positive way. That's sort of, we go in the flow of the universe. The flow of the universe to me is positivity. And when we add to that positivity, whether it's a thought, and this is the most minute example of this, when I hear a siren go by my house or a fire truck, I silently say to myself, bless. Whatever situation is happening to those people, I hope it works out. It's a thought transfer. And
Hmm.
that can go, saying hi to somebody in the supermarket, looking at the name tag and go, "Hey Jane, how you doing today? You doing all right?" "Oh, well, thank you. Well, I want to thank you for your service, Jane. I really appreciate it." You put a smile on somebody's face, because how we're judged, Chris, and this is not to get too philosophical about it, but
Hmm.
how we're judged at the end of the day when we're pushing up daisies is how we made other people feel when they crossed our paths. Whether you're a CEO of an organization or whether you're somebody that checks groceries in your supermarket. It's
Hmm.
how we made people feel, and that in combination. Now, when you align your actions and your thoughts and your words align with the higher power, the positivity, that higher power takes over and puts things in your path, people, ideas, opportunities in your path in order to make what you conceive as your goal happen. And
Hmm.
that's basically what happened in retrospect. How did I, under those odds, how did I exist and still exist in the business that only 5%
Yeah.
people, only five? How did that happen? And
Hmm.
it's that I've come to the conclusion that that is the only way that that happens. And I tell stories from my 55-year career in the book in more detail, but in my speaking engagements I tell the stories that exhibit this actual, that it's actually true.
Yeah. And along those lines, another way in which I think your book importantly differentiates itself from a lot in this category is many of us anyway, anyone who knows you knows the story of the now famous Dave, and the guy that you took time to say hello to take a picture with, etc. When you were touring with the Pat Travers band, and the full story is fabulous, but it eventually leads to you being the drummer for Cyndi Lauper on those iconic songs.
Not,
But
hold on, let me interrupt you. But
yeah.
not only that, Chris, yes, that led to a big business windfall for me, but it led to the meeting of the person that I'm still married to 36 years later. So that's how working in conjunction, in alignment with the universe and the higher power, changed my life. Not only brought me great gigs, yeah, you know, yeah, the Monkeys gig was as a result of helping somebody and
Right.
whatever, but that was all financial business, accomplishments. But the Cyndi Lauper, the Dave in the Doorway story, 5 minutes with him and changed my life. And I wake up every single morning, still at 71 years old, enjoying the benefits reaped from that 5 minutes in the doorway in 1981, 1982.
Yeah. But when I was going through this, because again, I knew the story already, but then as I was reading the book, what really jumped off the page for me was you said it's not about the one Dave you spend a minute with, it's the thousands of Daves that you spend a minute with. Because not many people put that context in there where it's you don't know who is going to be the key, and so it's the idea that, oh, you were nice to one guy and it turned out this way, but really no, you were kind to thousands of guys and
Correct.
making that a habit. And I think that's an important aspect that gets left out in a lot of these kind of conversations.
Absolutely, Chris. You're 100% right, because you don't do it. You don't spend 5 minutes with somebody with the thought of, well, what's in it for me?
Hmm.
you do it. When I spent that 5 minutes with Dave in the doorway, there was nobody in the dressing room. He's there to see the drummer. He's not there to see Pat Travers. He's there to see me because he's standing there with the pen and the camera.
Right.
So, but you just have to live that way. You don't, and you have to have your eyes open to notice those little detailed little situations where you glance over and you see somebody needing help or somebody struggling with getting a suitcase out of the overhead on a plane. Well, just don't turn your face. Grab the overhead, grab the luggage for the person. You know,
Hmm.
it's like you have to just open your eyes as a human being. And if there's any opportunity to advance somebody, to help somebody, to put a smile on somebody's face, because they're other human beings, they all have that little flame inside. And the idea is we need to do something or say something or act in a certain way that engulfs that flame. Pour some pour some gasoline on that flame and ignite it in that other person. Just even if it's for a second, or whether you take somebody's luggage out, help somebody with their luggage, or you give them life-changing advice, or you're their CEO or you're a parent and you're trying to raise a child to do the right thing and think the right thing. So
Hmm.
it's an across the board message, and it applies equally to janitors, to CEOs, or to roadies, or to rock stars. It's applicable to everybody.
Yeah, and I think also the important point is all those people you met who did not have the impact that Dave had on your life. Those were not wasted interactions. You know.
They're not wasted at all. They're not wasted at all. Somebody that you help, let's say using the example of helping somebody with their luggage. It may come back to you. It always comes back. It's a law. It's a law of the universe. What goes around comes around. It's action and reaction, cause and effect. And it may not be a direct effect. The person that you did a nice gesture and helped them with the luggage out of the overhead, maybe a week later or 2 weeks later or however many days later, you pull up to a restaurant late for your reservation and you're looking for a parking spot and somebody pulls out right in front of the restaurant.
Hmm.
Oh, there it is. So leave it up to the universe. I am not the designer of the universe. I am not I'm not at the controls. I'm a pawn.
Yeah.
I work on behalf of the higher power, and I try to treat people the same way as that would put a smile on the higher power's face. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? But you don't do it for any kind of accolade or any kind of reason at all. You know, you just let go and let God. That's you try to do it. And conversely, if I may add,
Hmm.
when somebody screws you over in your life, and I've been screwed over in my life by other musicians, by other stars, you're not a pushover. You try to get even the score, if you will. You try to get the money. When I didn't get paid on 2 weeks worth of touring or whatever, you try to get the money. You don't just lay down and lay back. But after a certain point, you pull the shade down on the people that wronged you, and you say to yourself, well, I tried. I respect this person from afar. I don't wish any harm on the person. I just figuratively pull the shade down on the person and pretend they moved to Outer Mongolia with no cell phone. So goodbye, you're out of my life. I don't carry that revenge. I don't carry that even the score around. That's like carrying a cinder block on your shoulder. So, so conversely, I let the universe take over and do what it's supposed to do as a result of my thoughts and actions.
Yeah. And then, but to play devil's advocate a little bit, how do you square this philosophy with there's a preponderance of horrendous role models in the business world right now? Elon Musk, the guy who had started WeWork, heck, even Jack Welch now is found out to be just a disaster in his time at GE. And these were a lot of them awful people who treated people badly, and B, who uh, are even now kind of breaking the law, and there are no repercussions. So how does your beating the odds philosophy
Mhm.
incorporate that?
Well, listen, don't be too quick in saying there's no repercussions.
Hmm.
You know, as I said, there's no bad deed that goes unpunished, and there's no good deed that goes unrewarded. To me, that is a law. That is not my opinion. To me, that is karma, and karma in action. And so I can't speak to how these people are going to be, you know, where the score is going to be even. That's not up to me. But
Mm,
I don't agree with the statement where somebody's treating somebody wrongly and out in the open and not there's no repercussions. I would beg to differ with that. There are always repercussions on negative activity,
hmm.
whether it comes from the person you're treating negatively to, or whether it comes from, you know, God forbid, oh, my house is on the side of the mountain that there was a mudslide in California, or oh my, you know, I don't know, I am not the designer of karma.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Chris, but one thing I do know, there are repercussions, whether it happens immediately, instant karma, as John Lennon would say, or it would happen, you know, years later in some kind of unrelated way. A natural disaster affects your house, a flood, a tornado, or whatever it is, sickness,
Hmm.
whatever it is, there is a payback. And it may not happen in this lifetime. That's the thing too. That's another thing where I got no knowledge of at all, of what basically happens when we go through the veil, you know. But
Yeah.
I live my life where, you know, I'm going to get away with this, and you know, I don't live my life that way where I do stuff that I can get away with or not get away with, because it always catches up to you for sure.
Hmm. And then another example in the book, which I thought could apply to a lot of different people, especially in their work lives, in corporate situations, was when you tell the story about getting involved with the German band Kraft, and there's two negotiations that happen in that book. The first is to get you to play on the album, and the second one is to get you to go on tour. The first one, lightened up a little on your needs, your wants, and were a little bit you were open minded to the possibilities. But then when it came time to the tour, you stood your ground a little bit more firm in getting what you deserved. What I'm wondering, because I think a lot of people face similar situations, is how do you know when to ease up and when to stand firm?
Well, that's there's not one set rule in stone where I use well, I'm going to stand firm on this, I'm going to let go on this, and negotiate or whatever. It's just basically a major factor is their sense of appreciation of what you do.
Mm,
In other words, you know, they were just not looking for a drummer. They wanted me in particular because of a recommendation or whatever, and they really, really wanted me in particular. It's not like they needed a drummer and here's what you're going to get paid and whatever. So I
hmm.
made concessions based on the people that referred me to the management in Germany. I was close with those American people that referred me to them, and it was an album project. And it was an album project as you fly to Frankfurt, you learn the songs. You fly to Frankfurt, and you're in one hotel, and you're in one workspace, being the recording studio. And however long it takes you to play the basic tracks, you get the check and you go home.
Hmm.
But a tour, I was a little bit more staunch in what I needed for the tour, and you're correct in that, because a tour is a tour. And a tour for an opening act in Europe, and not giving away who the tour was for yet, but I'm thinking, okay, we got to probably ride in a van, and we're going to be probably playing clubs, and you know, so it's like the long trips, and you know, the whole itinerary of an opening act tour, especially in Europe, driving in a van. Um, you know, and the day to day and the long trips in between and whatever. So I was a little bit more concerned about the compensation in a touring environment, because of the logistics and the travel each day and whatever, and the kind of clubs we're playing. Uh,
Hmm.
but then when it was, you know, and we went through all of that negotiation, and finally they showed their good faith, because the three members that were signed to the label in Kraft, they went ahead and gave me a piece of their they made me a limited partner in the band, not just a salary guy. They couldn't come to where I needed money wise, salary wise, week to week. But they said, "Listen, we can't afford that number. We'll give you a certain number, but we'll give you we'll make you a limited partner."
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if the album becomes successful, I get a piece of that profit, which is they're showing a tremendous amount. They're making me a limited band member, in other words, as opposed to a sideman.
Yeah.
So that was the spirit, and I said, well, okay, that's fine. By the way, who's the tour with? Oh, we're opening for Queen.
Right.
Oh shit! So I would have went out there for a couple of shekels.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it was one of the most rewarding experiences, even though half of the people listening, or 90% of the people listening to this or watching this, never heard of Craft, Craft. But I'm telling you, when I'm asked what was one of the top three tours I ever did, that was definitely one of them. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've heard a lot of cool stories. It's hard to beat having Brian May turn to you and say, "Oh, have you met Freddie? Let me introduce you." You know?
Yeah, and because as I say, I tell the story in great detail in the book. But when they used to play 2 and 3 nights, sell 2 and 3 nights out in each city, and on the first night, the record company threw a party for Queen, and we were always, as the opening act. Brian always said, "You guys are always invited. Just show your laminate. We'll get your address to your road manager where the party's going to be." I went to every single party that I was able to go to, and me and Brian I hung out with him mostly of any people on the band, the crew. I hung out with Brian mostly, and the thing I remember, his drink of choice was Tanqueray and tonic, and his gin and tonic basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the drink, when you put the Tanqueray and tonic under a black light, and a lot of times in these clubs, it glowed.
Oh.
And that's, the drink itself glowed under a black light, and that's what I remember. But yeah, and Freddie would go to maybe one of these parties, two of these parties a week. Brian was at every one. Roger was almost at every one. Brian Deacon I never seen him any other place except on stage or going to the stage or from this. John Deacon was the bass.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Brian was the most forthcoming professional guy. Came into our dressing room after the first show. Welcome to the tour. Any problems, come to Brian. We'll sort them out. You guys are invited. You guys sound great, whatever. And that's how I met Freddie and hung out with Freddie and took pictures of Freddie on stage. And
Hmm.
it was just an awesome experience.
You got time for two more questions?
I do.
Okay. So, number one, a lot, a lot of these stories took place pre-internet when there was a lot of one-on-one contact. Any kind of connections happened usually in person. Now there's a lot of stuff that's happening online, especially in this post-COVID era. And I'm wondering, there are all these sites like LinkedIn where people are trying to make their careers and trying to advance themselves in the business world, but a lot of it's just become, as someone once said, a complete dumpster fire. What is the how should someone take advantage of these places like LinkedIn in terms of, looking at their business, their career, but applying the lessons of your book?
Good question, Chris. That was a very innovative question.
Thank you.
And I would say is that because my vibe has always been, um, let me know how you can help me. It's not always let me know how you can help me. Or, in other words, when I meet somebody, I say to them, when I was trying to get my first big break, for example, I say to them, "Here's my card. If we share, we're in a jam session, something, and I meet a new people, whatever. I say, here's my card. Let me know if I can ever help you in any way." So it was never. I'm a drummer. let me know if you hear of any gigs. It was
Mm-hmm.
never that. And when I post something on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, it's never about, hey, I'm a speaker, hey, I'm a drummer, let me know if you have any gigs or whatever. When I post something on LinkedIn, yes, it's very important to be out there, and it's very important to be noticed on those platforms. Very important, because that's the way of the world right now, as you say. But it's never from a position of, hey, I'm this, let me know if you have any work for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's never from that. I always post uplifting things, or something, maybe some from my past, maybe a little clip from Cyndi Lauper, but or whatever. It's for entertainment, and it's for inspiration. In other words, I'll have a slide and I'll maybe put a little word of advice or whatever, just something to help people. And people notice that. They comment on your thing. You're on LinkedIn all the time. They
Mm-hmm.
comment on your post. And by the way, I gotta thank you for posting little excerpts of art. I know you do that for other people as well that you interview, and I think that's very, very cool. You're not only letting people know about the whole podcast, but you excerpt little things, and you like months after the podcast you put something up there, which is, I think, is, and it's in that spirit. You do something to help people. If I'm talking to you, or you're talking to another musician, and they offer some advice, or they have a little capsule of wisdom, you'll
Mm-hmm.
edit that out and you'll post it,
Yeah.
because it will help people. So I post things that will help people and or entertain. I don't post things to try to get work.
Mm. Okay.
The
Okay.
work comes as a byproduct. Hey, who's this guy with all this inspirational stuff? I need a speaker or whatever. And he says, oh, he goes on, I'll go on his website, and on his website, oh, he's a speaker. Well, so the work comes as a result. It's just like Dave in the doorway. It's the same thing. Whether you're talking
Yeah.
about LinkedIn or you're talking about Dave in the doorway, you do it out of the goodness of your heart. You do it to put a smile on somebody's face. I post a video of me and Joan Jett, or me and the Monkees, just to go, oh, I'm a big fan of Joan. To put a smile on somebody's face, or entertain, or and motivate, or inspire.
Yeah.
And then the work comes as a result of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not for, you're not selling a product or a service. You inspire. And
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I get that. And I mean, with my own posting that you were alluding to, luckily I get to talk to a lot of really interesting people, and who have a lot of great insights. And then, and I'm realistic in the sense that, okay, not everyone is going to watch every minute of every video, but there's a lot of great material that's in the middle or in the end, and I just want to make sure people see that, because it's fabulous.
right. And that's in that spirit. That's how you post.
Mm-hmm.
But you want people to see something that's fabulous. Maybe that will help them. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
that will put a smile. I don't know what your reasoning is and how you pick one edit over another, but you don't do it to try to get work. But as a result of your posting, who's this guy named Cris Cohen? And oh, bands to fans. Oh, so cool. So maybe maybe somebody, another musician, will reach out to Cris Cohen, bands to fans, because of what you posted. You know what I mean? So it comes
Yeah.
back to you in the same way.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's also just, as a reader, as a fan, this is what I want to see. You know, there's a lot of garbage out there that I don't want to see. I'd love to see more of this stuff. So it's just also a matter of, to unfortunately go for a bumper sticker thing, being the change you want to see in the world, so to speak, just, all right, I'm going to go and do what I want to see, and try and set that example anyway.
Right.
And then finally, when I was curious, because you talk to a lot of different, big companies, small companies, service groups, and everything. What I'm curious about is, what's your ideal audience? Makes for what are you looking for in a group that you talk to?
Well, My ideal audience, it could be anybody. I've spoken to people, organizations like School of Rock, where, there's kids basically.
Hmm.
I've really enjoyed my 27 years of teaching drums and music business at the Drummers Collective, or the Collective in New York City, which is no longer in existence. But my favorite type of speaking gig is a keynote in a conference
Hmm.
where there's anyone from anywhere from 100 people to 2,000 people I've spoken to. But in a conference setting, I'm able to have a drum set delivered. So I
Hmm.
play along as part of the message. I play along with a medley of all the songs that I've been involved with, all the top 10 hits that I've been involved with. So that's always entertainment. I get the audience involved. Again, it's not all icing. It's not all me, ba 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 ba, one way, ba 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 ba.
Yeah.
It's two-way. I want to get the audience involved in my presentation, which is the cake. So I
Yeah.
have a lot of interactive things with a call and answer, and I do a little thing with We Will Rock You, whatever. But in the Vistage, now that could be for an association for the American Bricklayers Association,
Yeah.
or and it's a weekend in Vegas, and I speak for an hour and 15 minutes. But I also speak for the Vistage organization, which is a organization, a peer-to-peer CEO group, which there's chapters all over the country. It's if anybody's interested in that, it's Vistage, Vistage.
Hmm.
Just Google it, and you'll find out all about it. But I speak to in a U-shaped table in a conference room, like anywhere from 10 to 20 CEOs that
Hmm.
are heads of their non-competing companies, and they have speakers at their meetings once a week. And there's thousands of these chapters all over the world. Vistage organization is all over the world. So, and there's no drum set, and it's a 3-hour workshop.
Oh.
And what is a drummer in a rock and roll band gonna give to 20 CEOs that are heads of billion-dollar companies?
Hmm.
But it's about that message, and everybody needs to see it. So I don't care who I'm speaking to. I don't turn down any speaking gigs because it's not my ideal audience. Everybody needs to hear the message from in some of these Vistage gigs there, in addition to the CEOs, they have retreats every once in a while for their particular group. And the retreat, the CEOs have the opportunity to bring their wives, and they go to another exotic location like a spa or a resort somewhere in
Hmm.
their area. So I'll speak to the CEOs and their spouses at these retreats. So now the spouses could be housewives. The spouses could have their own company in addition to the husband's being a CEO to his company. So it's an across the board message, and I don't really have a favorite group to speak to.
Hmm.
I talk to the meeting planner or whoever it is, and even the CEO chair of these meetings, and what's trending in your company, what's trending in your group of CEOs now, in this particular time when I'm going to speak, and I
Hmm.
try to address the trending issues, within a group. So. It's just like that. I'll just, whether it's drum set involved or not, whether it's a 3-hour workshop or an hour keynote. I've done some keynotes for a small chiropractic company that had a group of a staff of 10,
Hmm.
and they wanted a drum set. So I drove down to Birmingham with my drum set and did my presentation to 10 staff members of a chiropractic office.
Hmm.
So, and I get equally the enjoyment of that than it is equal enjoyment when I'm speaking to 2,000 people or 20 CEOs. It doesn't really matter. And it's the same way with playing. I'll play, and I played gigs where there was two people at the bar,
Yeah.
and the bar smelled like cat pee, or I played to 110,000 people in a Queen audience. But
Hmm.
I enjoy them just as much. It's just it's because I'm given a gift, and people are in the audience to see my gift, whether it's speaking or playing, and I appreciate that. So I don't never take my gift for granted, whether it's speaking or whether it's playing drums. I'm always thankful, and that's one of the key things that I advocate in my presentation, is having a spirit of appreciation.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because regardless, Chris, regardless of what's going on in this world today, you wake up in the morning and you start your day with 10 people or 10 things that you're appreciative of, And that's an awesome way to start your day. And it's impossible to be depressed when you're in a spirit of appreciation of what you do have. It's impossible to be depressed whether you're, if you walk to the bathroom on two healthy legs, well, there's something to be thankful for. And think about the little kid in the wheelchair at the airport that is operating with the joystick.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? You always think of the people in the Ukraine and what they're dealing with now.
Mm.
What is there not to be happy about me living in a house where I can go to the fridge and get food and my climate controlled and whatever. I can
Right, right.
I can bend your ear for hours, Chris, as you probably can tell.
Yeah, not a struggle getting stories out of you. But with that in mind, we've covered all my material. Is there anything we didn't discuss that you wanted to hit on in this?
No, I mean you basically covered it. I love the questions that you ask, and that's basically it. If you're curious about how to get the book, is that you want me to pitch that now?
Sure, yeah. And I mean, I'll link to your site and where they can get the book, when I
Okay,
post
yeah,
about it
it's
too.
the book is available right now on Amazon. It's available in a digital format as well as a softcover format. And I'm currently working with my ghostwriter to do. I've done about half of the book in an audio format, so that's going to
Mm,
be available probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So you
wow.
can go directly to Amazon, just search Sandy Gennaro or search Beat the Odds in Business and in Life. It'll immediately come up. If you want a signed copy of the book and a pair of Beat the Odds drumsticks signed, just go to my website, sandygennaro.com. Chris, you'll produce a link down at the bottom of,
I
uh,
will.
and just go to my website and fill out the little form and whatever, and I'll send you a signed copy from my office.